The Dollhouse series is filled in with Epitaphs, a series of graphic novels from 2010 to 2011, bridging the gap from The Hollow Men to Epitaph 1. It is authored by the writers of Epitaph 2, Andrew Chambliss, Marissa Tancherone, and Jed Whedon, and drawn by Cliff Richards. It stars Alpha on an angel-like mission of redemption and his protege Trevor, and it also includes Zone, Mag, Griff, and Ivy. Yeah, despite being the subject of the main cover, Echo's barely in it. There are two main storylines. One is about Zone, Mag, and Griff as survivors, and the other is about Alpha, Trevor, and 4 people imprinted as Ivy trying to fight Rossum with the beginnings of tech-head technology. The beginning is a prologue, showing a few of our protagonists as average people. Zone is a guy delighted to learn he's going to be a father. Griff is a businessman about to make a big deal. Mag is a sociology student trying to come out as gay to her rather dense friends. Trevor is an intelligent boy being reassured by his uncle about how he has potential. And then the world goes to absolute hell. Though it's not gotten into exactly why, Rossum launches a massive attack on the United States, and presumably elsewhere. An automated phone call dials everyone in the country and wipes whoever answers. Some victims are left as passive actives in tabula rasa state. Some are imprinted as random people. Some are imprinted as butchers, just killing non-stop. Others are imprinted as wielders. To log into Rossum, download the butcher imprint, and build imprinting devices to seek out and imprint those who didn't pick up. As can be expected, society collapses in an instant. To focus on the individual stories, though, I like that Zone is a responsible guy eager to shape up to become a dad, which makes his eventual adoption of the little girl look all the better, though his girlfriend calls their future child a bastard, a concept that's typically been used to shame women into abstaining from sex until marriage. Zone is completely cool with the whole thing, and the issue of marriage doesn't even come up. That's a positive take on relationships. The girlfriend answers the phone and presumably turns into a butcher whom Zone has to kill. But I don't think it really matters enough to be anti-feminist. The whole premise is based on every survivor facing something like that, and she's not developed enough to be a fridge stuffer. Next, Griff flirts with a female secretary in a periwinkle dress. He's polite and respectful, and it seems like everyone in the office gets along well. The occupations featured seem fairly traditionally patriarchal, though, with every secretary female and the people in the business meeting male. When the robocall hits, both men and women become butchers. The butcher to specifically intrude on Griff's life, however, is the woman in the periwinkle dress. The main horror comes from a friendly coworker spontaneously turning predatory and violent, but I think part of the shock comes from the woman going way outside her traditional gender role. The fact that she's wearing a dress instead of something semi-masculine like a pantsuit serves to create a shocking juxtaposition between the passive, wholesome feminine and the active, aggressive masculine. She attacks redshirt businessman Josh Jacobson, and Griff narrowly dodges a blow aimed at him, and she careens through the window. Mag, meanwhile, deals with coming out. Similar to Caroline and Bennett versus the popular girls, the subject of the scene, Mag, is made to look mature and intelligent for being contrasted against idiots. When the call comes, one goes tabula rasa while the other gets stabby. They're both killed when the woman in the periwinkle dress falls from above. Mag faces the bodies of 3 women, but I don't find their deaths anti-feminist at all. There's no sleaze factor to the women's depictions, and it's not pointless violence against women either, because this is the apocalypse taking place. Even though they're red shirts, their presence adds to the female prominence in the narrative, making it more realistic than most works, which follow the Smurfette Principle down into the red shirts. And then there's Trevor, a boy doing woodwork with his Uncle Wendell. Trevor is sad that some other boy is better at basketball than him, and Uncle Wendell gives him a pep talk about how he can be anything he wants to be. Then Uncle Wendell answers the phone and is imprinted, not as a butcher, but as Ivy. Ivy and Alpha are trying to fight back against Rossum, and they've hacked the robocall in order to recruit allies. These people are just doomed anyway, and Ivy takes over some of these people. And then as these imprints, she guides survivors to her and Alpha's hideout in Dodger Stadium, where Ivy is present in an imprinted woman, and also as an imprinted man. Fortunately, the graphic novel seems to have gotten over the problem in the television show, where women in men's bodies were treated as men degraded by femininity. 2 weeks after the event, Mag, Griff, and Jacobson worked together as survivors. Mag and Griff depend on each other for emotional support, while Jacobson's lost his ability to function. When they try to move, Jacobson loses his reason and runs towards a guy in a fireman's outfit, who turns out to be a butcher and kills him. Mag and Griff are saved by a trigger-happy Zone, who very nearly kills them too, but gives them a chance to prove their actuals. Zone has a car, so they join him to make a quick escape from a bunch of butchers. They share their stories, and Zone gets distracted enough that he crashes into the car belonging to Wendell, Ivy, and Trevor. They jump out to help and see that while Trevor identifies the person in his uncle's body as Wendell, person actually identifies as Ivy. Zone gives Wendell Ivy the Ballard treatment right in front of Trevor, terrifying them all and traumatizing Trevor. Whether or not Wendell Ivy could be said to be female, I don't believe the death to be problematic in the way of refrigerator deaths. While kind of interesting, the character is pretty much just Trevor's Obi-Wan Kenobi, whose death gives him the motivation to become a powerful warrior under the training of Alpha. Though this individual Ivy is a distinct person from the other Ivy imprints, and this is an act of murder on the part of Zone, from a storytelling perspective, an Ivy's death is cheap. And it's not significantly different from Zone's girlfriend's death induced by Rossum. Both are too shallowly developed characters to make the cut for refrigerator deaths, and are more just doomed by the premise. Wendell Ivy's death also serves as an illustration of how the survivors are losing their humanity. It's essentially the latest form of social prejudice, fear of imprinted people, leading to violence against them. Just because some imprinted people are dangerous, Zone and soon Mag justify killing an imprinted person on the possibility that they could become violent later. Trevor calls them the real monsters and runs off. A moment later, Mag agrees with him. Trevor makes it to Dodger Stadium, where he's greeted by Alpha. Trevor is actually the only recruit to make it there, and Alpha takes him under his wing. Girl Ivy, Boy Ivy, and Alpha make Trevor the first tech head, and give him a collection of imprintable skills.
I know Kung Fu.
The Ivies warn him not to upload too much, or risk a catastrophic composite event, so he always has to swap out abilities. While he and Alpha are out practicing, they see that the butchers are about to break into the stadium and go to clear them out. What follows is an action scene in which male protagonists engage antagonists that are mostly male. Trevor is caught in the middle of swapping skills and has to be saved in the nick of time by another female Ivy, this one blonde. Blonde Ivy's good with a shotgun, and she helps Alpha kill off the rest of the butchers on the scene. But Dollhouse is all violence against women, right? Blonde Ivy tells Alpha about the wielders, and he realizes that they need to create the vaccine against imprinting, which means they need to get Echo. Echo was last seen in DC, trying to infiltrate the Perrin administration, so they need to go on the move. They return to the base to find Girl Ivy and Boy Ivy having sex, which squicks out Blonde Ivy and Alpha. Alpha says, "I'm uncomfortable and most of my personalities were designed to fulfill the sexual perversions of the extremely rich." It's interesting that Alpha as a male active was primarily prostituted out. We don't see much of what the other actives get up to, but I imagined that the men were primarily warriors, with a few romantic engagements, while the women were primarily romantic, with a few hostile engagements. Based on Alpha's dialogue, though, it seems like he and Echo were in the same boat, forced to be prostitutes to lessen their prison sentences. It goes against gender roles and further emphasizes that Dollhouse is about everyone being objectified. As for the Ivies hooking up, no comment on their narcissism, but Rich and Famous did make a relevant video.
Would you fuck yourself?
It is an improvement on the Ivy character that she gets to express her sexuality and fulfill her own sexual desires without any kind of appeal to the male gaze, which is more than many female characters get, but especially women of color, though at the moment she's kind of transcended race. While references to masturbation fly freely with male characters, you'd rarely see that with female characters. And while I'm not sure if this counts as masturbation in the strictest sense, the fact that it's focused entirely on the overarching Ivy character receiving sexual satisfaction is notable. So while the Ivies load up the truck, Alpha and Trevor have a heart-to-heart. Trevor feels bad about killing the butchers because he knows that they were once people, and could potentially be people again. He asks Alpha to take out his distress, but Alpha says that the distress is important, and is what makes Trevor better than the butchers. It's what makes him human. Alpha just wants him to try thinking of the butchers as already dead, They move out with Girl Ivy driving. There's some discussion about Alpha's backstory for those who didn't watch the show. The Ivies tell Trevor that he used to be a bad guy, and that's why he's trying so hard to save the world. That kind of extreme guilt is a huge motivator, which echoes Topher's discussion of why he gives imprints flaws. Meanwhile, the Wielders have moved on to the second directive of their programming, taking over a radio tower and broadcasting a Wielder imprint on every frequency. This imprints most of the other survivors, leaving Mag, Zone, and Griff on their own, with Zone swearing to never again trust technology. It also imprints Girl Ivy, who enacts Directive 3 by driving to the middle of the desert, where the Directive 3 Wielders are overrunning a military base. The Wielder doesn't have her memories, so she doesn't know that people are in the truck, and she just exits the cab and joins the mob of Wielders. The group discusses what to do. Alpha sees Girl Ivy as dead and just wants to find Echo faster. Blonde Ivy agrees, while Boy Ivy wants to try to save her, showing that their personalities are evolving away from each other. Trevor doesn't bother with words and just tries to go after her alone, knocking her out with a stranglehold. A Wielder catches him, but he had the foresight to remove his ability to hear, so the imprinting is ineffective. Alpha is then able to rescue him and capture Wielder Girl Ivy. As the Wielder mob approaches, Alpha and Trevor beat a hasty retreat. The presence of a Wielder and an imprinting device gives Alpha the ability to learn exactly what Rossum's plan is by hacking both of them. He has Blonde Ivy work on it with him in the truck bed, while Trevor drives and Boy Ivy rides shotgun with the actual shotgun. Boy Ivy complains about getting an assignment involving having to shoot at butchers, but Blonde Ivy insists that Boy Ivy should be fine with it because Boy Ivy is a boy, essentially characterizing the aggressive role as innately masculine, that Boy Ivy should be innately better suited to it than a female Ivy, because of which meat suit her consciousness got dumped into. For Dollhouse, it's awfully anti-feminist gender essentialism. Well, there's an action-packed chase scene, and Trevor has to make a really tight swerve that shakes up the lab inside the truck. Wielder Ivy wakes up and imprints Alpha before Blonde Ivy can do anything, after which the Wielder Ivy runs away. Alpha is uniquely suited to controlling the Butcher imprint, and he reads its mind and tells the gang that Directive 4 is to kill Echo before she reaches Tucson, so they need to go to Tucson immediately. While they prepare to leave, Alpha tracks down Wielder Ivy. While Alpha can control his Butcher imprint, the distraction the Butcher poses allows his evil soul to regain control. After a brief argument with his evil side, Gollum takes over and makes art on her face.